But when we think something's sticking, say it 100 more times. Because people can just walk through this life. If it doesn't affect them, they really don't care. And if this is something that matters, that we have to get out there, we have to continue to talk about it.
The information in this podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes. Our informational content cannot address all dangerous situations and cannot guarantee your survival or prevent injuries when the unexpected happens. The decision to carry a firearm, either for recreation or for personal defense, carries the risk and potential for injury and or death. Therefore, it is advised that you seek out and acquire proper training before using a firearm or any firearm-related product.
What are some self-defense techniques?
What would happen if there was a global internet outage?
What should I do if I hear shots ringing out?
Or what I should do if there's a major terrorist attack?
What should I have? What's the best?
What should I do?
What does that look like?
What would you recommend? Is there anything I could do?
Dangerous Questions, we are back with an Ironclad original. We've been focusing on the area of national security. This is episode 2 of a 3-part series talking about things like, hey, what happened at the rally? How do I identify somebody? This episode is going to be awesome. We got a live caller in, and the theme really is going to be on border. What do we do at our border? How are we strengthening that? This is a topic that probably everybody at this point is seeing pop up in their feed. You know, what's going on? What do I need to do? It's easy to get complacent when you're in the upper, north part of our country, like something that's kind of going down there, it's kind of arbitrary. But people that are living on the border, it is very visceral and it's very real. And we're going to see some of those questions in this episode, including the live caller. So let's kick it off and let's get some good stuff out of this episode. Hopefully you guys down there in the South can relate to a lot of this and get a little bit of something out of this call. Let's hit it. Cory.
Nice to meet you.
It's great to meet you, man. We're live. Welcome to Dangerous Questions. I appreciate you taking the time to come on here. This theme that we're going over really has to do with the border. So we know guys like you that are experiencing that firsthand are going to be able to add value and awareness. I just said before you jumped on that this is probably popping up in everybody's feed right now, right? And if you're living in the northern part of the country, you can kind of ignore what's going on. But if you're not, it's very, very real to a lot of people. And it's been that way for years now. So more awareness is happening, and that's what I'm hoping to pull out of this. And really, with this theme of dangerous questions without the border, I was curious to what you had to bring to the table and what you had to say. And appreciate everything from your nonprofit and everything that you're doing. And before we end, I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to talk about that nonprofit too. So after you ask your question, don't forget to bring that up.
I appreciate you. Thank you very much for having me. One of the big questions I get, so I own a gun store here in San Diego. I'm sure you're familiar with San Diego.
Yeah, very familiar.
So being in San Diego, being close to the border with everything going on, and you mentioned the northern border is having these same problems, but you don't hear about it very much now for some reason. But you didn't hear about this stuff. This has been going on for over a year now here in Southern California. One of the big questions we get is how do we keep our family and our home units safe here? What can we do to strengthen our defenses at home?
So from a community level, even talking about it from a family perspective, right? You have people that are coming in, they're trying to be good citizens, they're purchasing a firearm, which is an amazing step to be able to do that, to layer your security. And I think the really glaring thing that we need to identify is the fact that you use the word family, we're not there 24/7 to protect them. And that's the part that we really need to confront. And the reality of it is that if I have a house in San Diego, or if I have a house close to the border, I'm not always going to be there to be able to respond. If I have a job to go to every day, or I have some other duties or obligations. So for me, it's really going to be able to identify who around me can I trust? Who around me in my community can I really band with together to be able to respond? Because if I don't have an overlapping field of fire, now if I can call you in an instant and be like, hey bro, I need you at my house right now, that's going to be a force multiplier that I couldn't do by myself. I can't be there 24/7. So I would say the number one thing was to encourage people to continue to know who their neighbors are, know who their assets are around them. And I really not just brush that off, not just like, hey, I got a couple of buddies that I think would respond. It's really getting to know the people around you. Do you really know them? Do you train together? And I mean, like, maybe you meet once a quarter. Hey, this is our capabilities. This is what we have available. I'm willing to do this, this, and this. and we can come together. That way I have a guy like you right down the road that I know I can trust with my family's life, and then we build that relationship. You know, a lot of that does go back to faith. I talk about that all the time. Hey, from a level of faith, how can we as a church come together to know each other, that we are focused on the same values, morals, and path, that if I walk out of the room, my son that's sitting right here on set with me, that's 7 years old, knows that he can look to you, Cory, and trust you with his life. That is missing today from today's culture, and that's something every man knows they need to strengthen that aspect of their life. You know, who do I really trust with my children? And if something does happen to me, say I go to work and I don't come home, and a life-threatening scenario does happen at the border, the first thing on my mind while I'm sitting there bleeding out or dying is, are my kids okay? And it's that level of peace that I can have knowing that the next guy that comes into the gun store to purchase a firearm is going to be the guy that says, hey, I'm gonna be a good citizen and show up for your family when you're not here. I mean, I don't know about you, but to me, that's where I'm gonna start.
Yeah, those are great points. One of the big issues we have in today's society is people don't talk to their neighbors. A lot of people don't even know who their neighbors are. I live in a rural area. We rely on each other for a lot of stuff. So going off what you just said, I have another question for you, if that's okay.
Absolutely, send it.
Comms go down. I have 47 acres, and my neighbors are, everybody's got about 40 acres. So my neighbors are pretty far away. One of my neighbors is a SED for the sheriff's department, and he's usually my first call. He's 1.2 miles away. What do we do?
Obviously, there are an evolving amount of comms that are out there. You know, line of sight obviously is one that is easy to rely on. You know, there's a lot of satellite comms that still exist that they're a commercial company. They're not necessarily reliant. And so like overlapping fields of fire, you know, there's all this talk about like if an EMP goes off, I think they're all gone. I think every one of them's gonna be out, potentially. I mean, I don't think that that's gonna be the case, but it's like, where are the parameters that we cover down on? Okay, text and phone call goes down, where's line of sight? Line of sight goes down, does satellite still work? It's like, how much money do you have to spend and what's your budget? You know, really that's what it comes down to. I mean, I could get ridiculous on having 4 or 5 ways of doing it. I have an inReach, right? Well, is that gonna work if GPS doesn't work and the global positioning's down? All of those elements are gonna help, but if you have the budget, overlap those fields of fire. You know, just like I always talk about the Taliban and how they evolved their comms, right? As soon as they knew we were tracking their talking, well, they just went back on foot. So it literally might be sending your kid running over or jumping in a John Deere and going to say, hey, we have an issue. I mean, it literally might come to that. We've become so reliant on comms that we think there's supposed to be this absolute comm solution. And I think there can be. I'm pretty sure that when it goes down, you're gonna have the ability to have some form of comms. You just have to budget for it. And a lot of people don't prepare. I mean, they don't know their neighbors and they're really not prepared to have a level of comms. I mean, we all know that comms are gonna go down right away. This is not gonna work. Anything bad that's really gonna affect our lives, this is the first thing that shuts down. So do you even have a secondary option? Know your neighbor, love your neighbor, right? That's the first, thing we're told to be able to, grow our community. Then really know your neighbor, and then know you can rely on your neighbor, and then have a level of comms plan that you budget for if it's something that is important to you. I mean, honestly, for me, it just becomes fun. If you and I are neighbors and you got 40 acres and I got 50 acres, we should just have fun with it. Hey, what happens if a comms goes down? Can I just call you to be like, hey, we're making coffee in the morning. Feel free to bring everybody over if you want to. I mean, make it something you can integrate with your kids, with your family, and everybody knows that they use it. Because if you're not using it that often, let's be honest, if something really goes down, you're probably not gonna pull it out anyway. And I think that that's just a level of reality and acceptance that most people just need to have on what is the actual reality. What am I really gonna step up and use? Some of this is fictitious. We've become, and not to run on about this, but we've become so good of consumers that we're like, oh, I can just buy an inReach. Oh, I can just buy this. But you're not actually practicing it and you're never gonna utilize it. Most people will buy an inReach, throw it in a bag and forget where they put the bag. You've got to be able to utilize this stuff. And that's really the last thing that I'll say about that is that you run a firearms store, which is a great place for people that are taking the step of action to say, hey, I want to do something about this. Well, the next step is actually utilizing it, training with it. You know that, right? You see all these people walking in and out. You're probably questioning, like, is that person really going to go get the training that they should? Or are they just going to say, I have the capability? And that's really where they have to continue to press into increasing their capability. You probably know it better than anybody.
Yeah, people coming. You hit the nail on the head. I watch people walk out of here every day, and are they going to go get some training, or is that gun going to go in the closet? And 2 years from now, they're going to come back and try and sell it back to me, which happens every week. I have an interesting point to your point there. Training on little things that we don't think about. So my house is so close to the border that we actually had someone breach our property 2 weeks ago. It was a drunk guy, crashed his car. I'm in the middle of nowhere, so cameras everywhere. The guy shows up on my camera as I'm getting ready to go to bed, and I told my wife to call 911, and I went down to see what was going on. When she called 911, we're so close to the border that it connected to the Mexican 911.
What?
So that's something that people close to the border need to think. We never knew. So she could not get a hold of 911. They kept answering in Spanish, and I was down the hill.
That's
so I wasn't
crazy.
able to figure out what was going on. And finally she connected and to the regular, they had to transfer her back to San Diego County Sheriff. And then, so, we got a debrief after that. It's what do we do? The next morning we did, if there's an emergency, I roll my tractor, right? Or something like that. There's an emergency. How do we get a hold of 911 quickly? And the answer from the sheriff's department, the dispatchers was when you call 911, it's going to go to the Mexican 911. Now she doesn't speak Spanish. So they said, just say San Diego or United States. That's not a real good answer for how to get a hold of it. So we're still working on that, on trying to figure out how to get a hold of United States 911 in an actual emergency.
Well, I'm so glad that you brought that up. That is mind-blowing. I mean, it's something that we take for granted, but just to add a little bit of clarity, what happened is that you pressed the reality. And I say this all the time. If I'm relying on my family's safety and security, believe me, I've tested that reality in different ways, because you have to know, well, what is the response time? These are very real things that, as a person that wants to prepare and do everything right, I mean, you found that out. Luckily, it wasn't the really hard way, and now you have a little bit of preemptive knowledge to be like, would you even bother calling 911 if it was an immediate thing? Would you even play around with that? Again, if I have my wife, sitting in the bedroom with the kids and she's preparing in another way, sure, she could continue to work through the logistics of that if she had the time. But wow, that's something that I wouldn't even be able to predict that happened to you. And that is an issue. And so I think it's important for people to know the reality of the scenario that they're in. I mean, what do you do if you're on the border? I mean, how do you stop people that are going to watch this and be like, you know what does happen if I'm on the border? 911, hey, is this San Diego or not? You know what I mean? I don't want to have my 7-year-old son, if something goes down, having to talk to somebody in Mexico. That is ridiculous. Those are seconds that our lives are dependent on. So, man, at least bringing some awareness to it. I hope you some luck in that fight to be able to create some clarity on somebody getting their stuff together to be able to direct it in the right way.
This goes back to your first point about neighbors, right? So what did we do? While she was on the phone trying to get a hold of them, she was texting the neighbors. And guess who showed up first? The neighbors.
Yeah, and that's something today. How many years have gone by now where unfortunately we've lost sight on the value of our neighbor? Really, depending on each other, because before it was, hey, you have a firearms store, well, I have a training store, and we're gonna barter with each other. Hey, let me get a firearm, I'll give you some training. Hey, I've got some produce. If you help me out moving some stuff around. That's how it was in a community. That's what kept it strong. Everybody had a skill, and if you didn't, you worked at one. You worked at raising or helping somebody else with their skill. And because that's so fragmented and everybody can just push a button for Amazon and nobody needs anybody from anything, it's letting us just slip by with a level of complacency that's kind of hard to wrap your head around. So hopefully if anybody gets any encouragement from this, it's trust, rely on, and encourage to develop your relationship with your neighbors. You know, I really think that that's the answer, for, especially on the border or anything that's happening. You're going to turn inward right away. Like, hey, I need to talk to the guy down the road. You know, next state over, sorry, 911, crisis situation, they're not coming to my house. They're figuring out whatever's going on out there. They're leaving me high and dry.
Yeah, and most of the areas where the border is, it's very rural. So it seems like most people have, most rural people have that mentality where we kind of need each other and use each other. There are a lot of areas that are not rural. They're, you know, the neighborhoods with the cul-de-sacs, and I feel like those people aren't talking to each other and preparing. Especially if you have a cul-de-sac, that's a perfect place for you and your neighbors to have a barbecue. That's the easiest way to get together, have a barbecue, talk about what's going on. It might feel a little weird, but we're in some pretty weird times right now. Yeah, we have to do that. My neighbors have also, there's just the little things of hardening your home, the simple things like the door jamb, take those 1-inch screws out, put those 3-inch screws in, just little things, because your time is not on our side out there. We know that law enforcement's going to take sometimes a half an hour, maybe more in weather conditions. So, or if they're on another call. So the only thing we have are the people next to us. And if you go out of town or I mean, we can beat this horse to death, right? But just go talk to your neighbors, have a barbecue.
Yeah. Well, I think you asking the question that, you know, you're living out. You know, my answer was something that you're already living. So I would just encourage you to continue to convey that to people, whether they live on a cul-de-sac, they live in the city or not. You know, the principle is the same. Have people you can trust. Build those relationships. Get rid of your phone. Not completely what I'm saying, but like get rid of what you think is real on here and make it very real in your life. I mean, that's just something we've got to go back to anyway. I teach my children that. I teach the people that I'm friends with, the brothers that I have in church. I mean, this is a group of men that I put my life down for, you know, and I know with all my heart, if I was not here, my children would be guided and protected and led in a way that's faithful. And that's something that's irreplaceable. And I just encourage everybody that's watching this to do that. Okay, so to end, just give me a rundown about your 501c3 and your nonprofit.
No problem. So my nonprofit is thegoatinitiative.org. And I've been, for the last year, I've been collecting intel on all this stuff that's going on at the border. I have ID cards, hundreds, probably thousands at this point of discarded ID cards that the illegals have come across and dropped. I have just so much intel that we've collected, some of my friends and I, and they're now board members on this nonprofit. So what we're doing now is we're working to combat child trafficking, which the last few days I've learned some absolutely horrific things. I'm taking a guy out tomorrow, Jared Sadolski, and he is an expert on this child trafficking stuff. He's been doing it for many, many years, testified in front of Congress and the Senate. What he told me yesterday is just absolutely horrifying, and it sounds crazy, but I've heard these migrants come across talk about this, and it's so again the nonprofit's for child trafficking, anti-child trafficking, child sex exploitation, child labor camps. We don't even know, most of us don't know that there's labor camps in our country. Hyundai, a subsidiary of Hyundai recently was just busted with a bunch of kids working for them in Georgia, I believe. So what this gentleman told me that I'm taking out to the border tomorrow is the organ harvesting, which is just crazy for me to say, right? I feel like everyone's going to shut your show off now because of this conspiracy theorist. It's not a conspiracy anymore. They have proof of it. A young kid, adolescent kid, was brought to the Tijuana area very recently, and the people that brought him there were promised $15,000 for his left eye. So we're taking this intel that we're getting from talking to the people coming across, the stuff that they leave, the documents that they leave. We're taking the intel and we're working with local, state, federal authorities to try and stop this. And I was on another gentleman's podcast, and I told him that one of the 3-letter agencies, when I brought this up and said that I wanted to do this, told me that it's not possible. He said I wouldn't even make a dent, and I'm not going to take that for an answer. I know you wouldn't either. So we're going to make a dent. We're going to make more than a dent.
Yeah, and obviously during COVID, I feel like God revealed a lot of what was going on in these deep, dark parts of the world. And I just see this rising of faithful men and women recognizing the evil that's out there. And honestly, what's in the dark is always going to be brought to the light, always. As much as it hurts, as much as it sucks to confront, because it does, it hits me like right in the chest as my 7-year-old sits here watching me. I have 5 children. And to me, it's a call to continue to provide for, to lead our children, and then to do more, to bring that level of awareness, across the globe and anything we can do. So first of all, good on you for stepping up and doing something and not taking no for an answer. I've got more buddies at this point than I can count that are involved in getting out there, that are on assault forces, that are on planning teams. I mean, it's a beautiful thing to watch. And it's almost like we were deploying over here, chasing these guys, but a lot of guys I know are now redeploying over here because that's where the fight is. That's where God's revealing us to be able to go and make an impact and make a dent in the smallest way. I mean, look, it is true. If we can save one child, right, from this evil, then we should be doing it. We should be doing something to make that effort. Can you spell the name of that .org again? It's
TheGoatInitiative.org. It's thegoatinitiative.org.
And it'll be in the show notes down here as well. I'll make sure we got a link for people to go check it out. And I just appreciate you coming on here. I mean, the value that you brought to the table, what you're doing down there, running a firearms store, also having this nonprofit, you are making a difference, man. And I appreciate the questions. I hope a lot of people got some perspective out of this. God bless you. God bless your mission. I'll be praying for you and what you're up to. And I don't think anybody's going to turn the show off after what they hear. I think people want to know this type of information. And really, just like my buddy Brad Haynes talks about in leadership, we have to over-communicate clarity with our children especially. But when we think something's sticking, say it 100 more times. Because people can just walk through this life. If it doesn't affect them, they really don't care. And if this is something that matters, that we have to get out there, we have to continue to talk about it. So good on you, man. And thanks for everything that you're doing, Cory.
No problem. Hey, do you have time for one quick question?
Send it.
So my wife and I found God about a year ago. And what I've noticed, and maybe you've noticed the same thing, so this is part of the question here. Have you noticed more people like myself kind of finding God and going, hey, something's not right. We have this calling to go do something like I'm doing right now. I've noticed a ton here, and especially guys like yourself, a lot of SEALs, a lot of MARSOC guys, and I feel like God is bringing us together. A bunch of people that you don't want to bring together. Like we're going, hey, this isn't right, and whoa, okay. So I was a door gunner in the Army in a Black Hawk. So all these people that coming together, it just doesn't seem like a coincidence. Are you seeing the same thing?
I think God is building his warriors, and I think God is clearly pointing to truths that need to be addressed, and I am absolutely seeing the same thing. In fact, I've grown my faith a lot over the last several years, and I kind of quietly sat back and just was on my knees, forging every day. Like I look back at the last 5 years of my life, I've changed so much. I look at the next 5 years of my life. I'm like, Lord, I don't know what you're going to do in my life, but I'm ready. And it's not a coincidence. And I think it's God moving his hand through something that needs to be done. And people are realizing that he's giving everybody a choice now. That's what I see in our culture. People were able to be complacent and just kind of go through. You look how we grew up in this country. I mean, we were deceived, lied to, shown things that we probably shouldn't have known or done. And it's like us all waking up now. It's like, wait a minute, like where am I? We had to snap ourselves out of the stupor that we've been in. And I think that's what you're seeing is like good, smart people that want to do the right thing are being led back to God's values and who God is and who God's calling us to be in a very, very profound way that you can't make up. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, I just sit back and kind of laugh a little bit. I'm like, all right, Lord, I'm like, you're doing something now. But it's not a coincidence, and I'm glad that you highlighted it. I think a lot of people that are recognizing that are realizing that we're being given a choice. And I think that's the thing is that good people are making the right choice right now. And they're on the side of what God's asked us to do the right thing, to do the just thing, and to continue to live for the good of the world and face the evils that are very, very real. We have evil rearing its head in so many different ways, it's incomprehensible at this point. It's like, well, who's going to stand in the breach to do something about it? And he's calling us to do it.
Yeah. So I guess the key takeaway from that is if you hear the calling or you feel the calling, it's probably the right calling.
There you go. You know, I don't think that that's a coincidence. And I think that people that hear that voice, it's time to listen. So yeah. God bless you, Cory. I appreciate it, man. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, guys, that was an awesome call in from Cory. You know, please go check out his nonprofit. You know, it's guys like that are really in the breach. You know, I'm not out there on social media much anymore. And I've said this time and time again, because I'm pouring my heart into my family to make sure my children, my sons and my daughters know the truth of this stuff. And that takes a lot of work. It is a full-time job, but do your part. You know, this evil is being highlighted in a way for us to pay attention to it, to do something about it, to prepare ourselves for it. And none of this is a coincidence, even you watching this show. So great live call. I'm enjoying this episode so far. So let's see what we got next. This episode is brought to you by Aimpoint, a name that I'm very familiar with, especially coming up in the teams, running a lot of their gear on our guns that are smaller packages and set up differently. You guys have been asking me a lot about red dots, and these guys are staying on the cutting edge of technology and making sure that guys out there in the field get some of the best stuff out there. Go check them out. The link is down below. They have a special promo for dangerous questions. And like I said, they're setting a standard. Go check them out. All right, guys, this segment of Dangerous Questions is also brought to you by Mountain Tough. Mountain Tough Plus is the fitness app that's trusted by the dedicated. Who's the dedicated? You guys watching this show. We care about our ability to become assets and to be able to handle these situations, these scenarios. We're asking these questions for a reason. This is a fitness app that gives you no excuses and sets a level of fitness mindset that you guys can take with you everywhere. Mountain Tough is an all-access subscription platform. It gives you access to everything that they have available. World-class home fitness programs, mental training, self-improvement, prehab, rehab, everything that you guys need to set a solid foundation of fitness for your life. Again, you know fitness is really important to me, and I highly recommend this fitness app. And here on Dangerous Questions, we talk about it all the time. You've got to be prepared. Mountain Tough is giving an exclusive discount for all Dangerous Question listeners. Use the code DANGEROUS at mountaintough.com on the monthly subscription. You'll get your first month free, and that's on top of the 14-day free trial, giving you guys 6 weeks to test this out. 6 weeks of free trading at mountaintough.com. Go check it out. All right, this is a written question. Hey, Dom. What would you do if you were stopped at a cartel checkpoint on the road? Okay, so this is something that I went into. I've been stopped at multiple checkpoints overseas. So let's just start there. Okay, I have experience going through this real time, you know, to the point where I'm dressed in the appropriate garb, whatever the local population was wearing. And I have the bag in between my legs with all of my kit, my AR, my firearms, my med kit, the grenades, whatever I had ready to go down and throw down. And I've got my concealed fire on me. And I am calculating every bit of, okay, who am I drawing on and shooting first? You know, this is getting really real fast. Multiple scenarios where I have AKs tapping on the window. Are these guys good? Are they bad? Do I know? You know, if they're trying to be crafty, they're clearly going to try to act like somebody that they're not, because that's the quickest way to get you to drop your guard. Oh, this is just another checkpoint. These are just police, you know, routine checkup. Here's my ID, sir. But this is a very real scenario for people to be able to prepare for. Now, the best thing that we can do, if it's available, is to be able to get intel. What are these cartels doing? When they do a checkpoint, what are they looking for? Is this something that's popping up more often? Are they shaking people down for cash? Are they just robbing them completely and letting them go on their way? Are they taking vehicles? Or, worst case scenario, does your life depend on this? Are they trying to take somebody out of the vehicle? Are they trying to kidnap? or take people to a secondary location. Now we have to start asking ourselves the question of, what do I have to be prepared for if that's the case? I want to gather intel. If I know for sure that these guys are just trying to do a quick shakedown, I'm going to try to mitigate and avoid as much as possible. Hey guys, sorry I ran into it, bad day for both of us. Here's some cash, see you later. Maybe they say, thanks a lot, be on your way. Okay, that's a possibility. But I also don't want to ignore the life-threatening one where your kids' lives are on the line now, and you have to fight with everything that you have. How are we preparing for those situations? All of this stuff that I'm talking about happens pre the checkpoint, pre the incident. I want to be prepared for that already. I want to already be visualizing, man, if I come up on one of these checkpoints, what am I going to do? If this is a real scenario for you guys, are you training with your family? Hey guys, everybody's in the position, everybody knows what to do, you're coming up on a place. First of all, can I just turn around and go the other way if I know it's going to get really bad? And if not, you're stuck in traffic, cartel hits you, what are you going to do about it? What do you have to be prepared in that scenario? This is something that I want you guys thinking of pre-event, not during. Don't let yourself get caught off guard. Make sure that you're actually doing these things in a way that makes sense. Okay, so don't leave yet. I want to make sure that this question gets answered completely. Okay, so the idea of us having to fight for our life, it's the worst case scenario. And that's really what I want to end with on this one, is that what do you have within reach that you can fight for your life with? Obviously, a firearm is the best case scenario. If I know this is going sideways and I have somebody telling me, hey, I want one of your kids in the back seat, pull them out of the car. Well, that's not going to happen. Now we're in this till one of us isn't here anymore, and it's going to be you. I need to have that level of mentality and that violence of action to mitigate this to the best of my ability. Anytime you say checkpoint, I'm automatically thinking that we're in a vehicle. So never forget that your vehicle is a weapon. Whether you're at a checkpoint, whether you're in a scenario where you're getting robbed, or this seems like it's getting really bad really quick, use your vehicle as a weapon and get out of there as safely, as effectively, and as violently as you possibly can, mitigating that risk or life of your family and your children. All right, next question. So this is one that I talk about in scenarios where people are getting wrapped up, handcuffed. This one specifically is in the case of abduction. I'll talk about that in a second. Do you have any advice on how to best to free your hands from zip ties? Okay, I feel like zip ties are fairly easy for most people to get out of. There's all levels of zip ties. There's very, very weak zip ties, which you could literally just bust open, or there's some really, really deliberate ones that are very, very thick and hard to get out of, and those take a little bit more effort. I talk about Dyneema thread, Kevlar thread often, and even if you have something like that, or even a shoelace, guys. I've got shoelaces on, and even just using these that I have on here and finding a way to manipulate them and get them all undone. I mean, I could do it right now. Unlace this shoe, put one side anchored on my foot, bite the other side, and then rub with friction all the way up and down until I get those off. I want to saw through the zip tie as best as I can. That's principle number one. Find something in your environment you can zip tie. You can saw through with the zip ties. If I go back here for the first part, the abduction, remember what I talk about all the time. Your chances of survival drop significantly if you go to a secondary location. So I'm talking to everybody here. Your daughters, your sons, your family, don't allow yourself to go to that secondary location. Honestly, if there's not something glaring or you break that rule for a specific instance because you're feeling something about your instinct that's going to tell you you're going to have another opportunity, or say my son gets taken to that same spot, if he gets thrown into a van, I'm going too. I'm like, okay, you can just take me, because wherever my son just went, I'm following him there so I can crush everybody and save his life. Try with your life to not let that happen unless you're breaking that rule, because again, your chances of survival just statistically go down. It's not good when they get more of in a controlled environment. Typically, when you're getting abducted, it's out in an unknown environment, and that's where you need to do everything to fight for your life. Get training, be violent, create space, get to a safer spot, yell for help, use a firearm, use weapons, use a blade, use your environment. All those things need to be adhered to. If we end up in zip ties for whatever reason, The best thing to do with a plastic zip tie is to create some type of friction. Find something to rub up against, whether it's a wall, a corner, use a shoelace, find something to your advantage that you can break through with. Something people don't think about often, but it's very, very effective.
There were some dark moments. Holy shit.
We ought to probably have dinner sometime.
They were ghosts.
Okay, this guy's serious.
I mean, it's unheard of, right?
Yeah. Tens of thousands of children digging cobalt out of the ground.
You just sensed that it was out there.
It's like they'd been hit by a nuclear bomb.
We're not framing history correctly.
I want adaptability and versatility.
Don't draft Wolf on your fantasy team. He's not going to get the ball this year.
This is going to matter one day.
This is how I pulled myself out.
That's when my eyes were opened.
This is a whole new wildlife enemy, man. This is crazy. Who are these guys?
Us in our own country don't even have the same gratitude towards it.
And he does the right thing because he closes the distance.
We're all programmed in this world to push ourselves even farther.
I don't have to make something important, but what I have to try to do is make something you'll never forget.
My favorite part, the scenarios. We get to break these down together. We talked a lot about what could happen in scenarios on the border, mitigating risk. But let's get to my favorite part of the videos. Let's break them down. All right, so this first video, we've got a few dudes in this enclosed space. Great. Already seeing the hot gates there and manipulating your environment. And here comes a chair. All right, I love the improvised weapons. That just makes me happy. I mean, look, you got a bunch of tough dudes there, and I believe that they're doing exactly what needs to be done. They're working together as a team. They're utilizing their environment. You know, I didn't see what this guy had in his hands, but clearly he's the threat. He's the problem. Let's back up again so we can see how this unfolded. Now that we got a clearer picture of this, let's watch. Okay, this is the problem. The guy with something over his shoulder, he's already being aggressive. All right, pause right there. I've seen this unfold multiple times where people kick something in the environment. I had a guy walk into a bar. He was already mouthing off, kicked the bar stool. I was like, oh, that's the guy that's going to be the problem. He's going to cause an issue. Well, what are we doing to set ourselves up in that scenario? Well, clearly somebody was in the background grabbing a chair. Improvised weapons, use of your environment, awesome work. Give yourself permission wherever you go to do exactly what these guys did. Band together, use each other as assets, work as a team, and utilize your environment. Okay, let it play. These guys are all working together. That guy's even coming in with a broom. Okay, what's good about that chair and the broom? They create a little bit of distance. I didn't see anything in this guy's hands, a blade, a gun. I mean, he's clearly coming in to be aggressive. One thing that I'm seeing, because there's a little bit of lack of training here on the part of these guys, is, you know, they're crowding this dude. So at some point, you know, they're all trying to get a piece in, right? But even poking that broom in there. At some point, you start to mitigate your effectiveness by bundling up on top of each other. Now, to subdue him, fine, but let a couple of guys work. Even some of these guys backing up are going to create more opportunities. I see police officers, no offense to those guys that do great work, but this happens all the time with cuffing a dude. You got 10 guys on him, nothing's happening. You're just fighting each other. Back up, create space. And of course, you know, now they got the guys in on there. But work together as a team. And sometimes that might be, oh, you know what? I don't have a shot. Coming in here and poking the guy in the head with a broom might not be that effective. I just need to be like, hey, I'm just watching his hands, or go grab his feet together and then let the guys up top work. You know, I didn't really see anybody grabbing his feet there. But good use of environment, enclosed space, and working as a team. Chairs suck to get hit with. So use a chair. Use something else that you can utilize to your environment. Give yourself permission in each environment you walk into to grab whatever you need to win the fight. This camera stand, this chest, these lights, this rug. I mean, I'm literally sitting on a rawhide rug. What a great thing to use for a blade attack, to wrap around my arm and crash in until I can control the guy. All right, this was in Tucson, Arizona. Let's see what the next video is that we're gonna break down together. Okay, kind of tough to see what's going on here. Obviously, you have multiple people sitting down, and he's kind of coming in nonchalant, isn't he? Starting to give a little bit of direction, and I'm assuming that there's a gun or blade out now. All right, then he just dropped on the floor. So a little bit of inexperience. Okay, so he's doing a quick snatch of everybody's belongings there. Give me your money. You know, he's not covering his face. You know, sometimes when somebody doesn't cover his face, it kind of, you know, spikes my radar a little bit. Because he's like, I have nothing to lose. Now, one person decided to fight back here. Let's rewind to that. We know what's going on. We've established the base. He's coming in here. He's desperate. I don't even know where this place is. You know, looks at some type of waiting room for something. But somebody just says, you know what, today's my day, and I'm not gonna let you take my stuff. You know, this guy's a threat. He already dropped something on the ground. They chose to take action. Now they're doing exactly what we talked about in the last video, working as a team. Could everybody come together and stop this guy? 100%. Could anybody with a little bit of training come in and stop this guy? 100%. Okay, now we're starting to pour outside of the building. And again, it's kind of grainy to see what's going on here, but the principle is there. You know, once you start, and this is the key thing, go ahead and pause real quick. So you have a bunch of women in here that are obviously in a waiting room or doing something. Once somebody commits to this and says, you know what, I'm going for it. I feel like my life is in danger. I feel like this guy has nothing to lose and he's gonna come in and harm somebody. Could they have just handed over something? Sure. But you know what? You are gonna get the people that are like, this is my last $20 bill. And I'm not going out no matter what you do, no matter what you say, this $20 bill is gonna feed my kids. And that's a real scenario. And it does become about your life. So this woman just says, nope, it's not gonna be my day. And if somebody triggers that and starts, that's where it's important for everybody else to say, yes, we're doing this, and go with 100% of your effort until this is mitigated. Grab a limb, grab a neck, stick a fingernail in that guy's eye, drop him down to the ground and crush that dude until he's neutralized to a point where somebody else can come in and help or that guy's knocked out. Again, use your environment. You know, I didn't really see anybody use much of their environment here. Again, it's hard to tell, but stick together, band together, and get on this guy. If somebody commits to doing it, well, now she needs help. So what are you doing to help her? All right, let the video play out again. Okay, drop something on the ground. Everybody's in the shock and awe phase, right? They're kind of all like, all right, either way, they're doing a good job to work together. Now, if everybody worked together, think about the effect that they were able to have. You know, they're pouring back inside of the building, which he gets a little glimpse of, oh, I'm out, now I'm back in. So he may decide to just fight with everything he has too, or just to break contact. But keep in mind, you know, this guy already stands out a little bit. Something's not right. Everybody's kind of tuning in on him, right? She looks over his shoulder. He might have had some verbal cues there. I would take this guy seriously, whatever the verbal cues are, and then find out what your target of opportunity is. And I want to see exactly what this girl does back here to lunge in. Okay, he's grabbing stuff. He's going to reach. Okay, we didn't really see how that started, but she clearly lunged in. And I had thought her distance was a little bit further because I don't know where she came from. But again, once you crash that gap, you've got to have violence of action and commit to everything that you have. Help out, work as a team to mitigate this threat. Again, I can't emphasize it enough, guys. If you're out in a public environment and you're not the one to take action, and all of a sudden you're in that shock and awe phase and somebody jumps over to you to get in the fight, help them. Do something, because together you're going to be way stronger working as a team. If you take anything away from this, that's one key thing to take away. All right, these breakdowns, as always, you know, walk away with principles, write notes down, apply them to your life. Again, I want you guys to become assets. Keep crushing everything, guys. Thanks for all the support and sending your questions in. This is Dangerous Questions, an Ironclad original. God bless you guys. See you on the next episode. Peace.